Thank you, Jonathan. Mark Eiglarsh, a criminal defense attorney, joining us now. Mark, these details we are learning are horrifying, especially the account of the surviving roommate saying that she heard crying, saw the killer face to face. The suspect's car was seen leaving that area. High rate, speed, 4:20 a.m. The morning of the murders. The knife cover, obviously, the sheath is a big part of discovering the suspect's DNA. He left that behind at the scene. We are told they were able to cross-reference that DNA by going into his home and retrieving things from the garbage. And this would reveal that police and the investigation knew a lot more than they were letting on much earlier in all of this than they were letting the public know.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations to them for not pandering to the public's need to know and thus compromising the criminal investigation. They didn't do that, and now we know why. The lead question today is, hey, Kohberger, how did your DNA get on that tan leather knife sheath left on the victim's bed? Period. There's the question. How do you answer that? Before we get to anything else, somewhere there is an attorney or a group of attorneys trying to figure out an innocent explanation that they can give with a straight face.
So, on that source, to that question, Janice Bilborough was with us last hour, and she said, Mark, that his attorneys could argue that somebody took that knife, that he had it in his possession for some period of time, left DNA on it. Now, we don't know whether the DNA was a blood sample or if it was a skin sample. That obviously could have a big bearing in this case. But then he could say that somebody took the knife, somebody used my car, somebody took my cell phone as well. I wasn't anywhere near the place. Is that a case that you think a defense attorney could effectively make?
Absolutely, and they will. I mean, the stakes are too high. We're talking about his life, so they're not going to say, okay, you got me. There's going to be an argument. And this is a circumstantial case in that there was no eyewitnesses to be able to say, that's the guy with certainty that I saw do it. Circumstantial evidence cases can be strong. They can be compelling, like having DNA evidence. But prosecutors must eliminate every reasonable hypothesis of innocence in order to secure a conviction. So you're right. The defense lawyers are going to say, look, that probably is his DNA, but somehow they got his belongings, and they'll try to explain everything away. The prosecutors are going to argue, yeah, you can explain away one, maybe two things, but not one thing can you then say equals anything other than his guilt if you put everything together like pieces of a puzzle.
Mark, just heading through the timeline, it's really something to see how much the cell phone records were revealing. To your point about the suspect turning the phone off and on again, is this someone that appears to have been careful or not so much in his crimes?
I think he was pretty careful. I thought there'd be a lot more DNA, a lot more screw-ups. There was just one piece of DNA that he left behind in a crime that typically the not careful perpetrator would have left a lot more clues. But it's not uncommon for even a street offender, certainly someone who's studied criminal law and forensics, to turn their phone off so that they don't place them right at the scene at the time.
So, Mark, when we look at the break in the case, it looks like it occurred on November the 29th. I mean, we heard pleas of frustration from the family members of these victims saying, why isn't there a suspect? Why don't we know more? But it looks like the break in the case came on the 29th of November, according to the affidavit, when Daniel Tiengo, who is a police officer with Washington State University, at the request of police, did a canvass of the area to find out if there was a 2011 to 2013 white Hyundai Elantra. And lo and behold, there was one there in a parking lot at Washington State University. And there we see security camera footage of the car that was collected during a canvass of any video recording devices that were in the area of the home where the 4 students were killed. Yet they very quietly and patiently built this case around Kohberger, including following him and his father across the country, then apparently, at the request of the FBI, having him pulled over, and then we see body cam footage from one of the traffic stops, by police in Indiana to get a look at his hands. What do you make of all that?
Right. Well, they're building a case little by little. Keep in mind, before they start focusing on Kohberger, they lock into a testimony one of the eyewitnesses in the house who could have described the person as, you know, Hispanic or a black male. No, she said a white male, bushy eyebrows, 185 pounds. Turns out that's what he was. But she said tall, slender build, approximately 5'11", maybe a little taller. And it turns out that's the exact build of Kohberger, who happens to own the same vehicle that was seen on the scene, who also, and then fill in the blank, and it all becomes so coincidental that he was framed like the Mona Lisa.
Just devastating learning all of this and seeing him there in that courtroom a short time ago. Denied bail. He will return to the courtroom January 12th, the judge said. So about a week from now. Thank you very much, Mark Eiglarsh, on the breaking details.
Mark, thank you.
Crimes.
My pleasure.
I mean, this probable cause affidavit, Sandra, really is a tragic and fascinating